Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, because we are on a Wednesday. Oh my goodness me, the middle of the working week already. Where has that gone? As you can see, we're in the library and we've got the fire on for effect, but not for heat, because today has been absolutely sweltering, as I will tell you about at half time. So, what are we reading? Well, we are wrapping up the missing stories from Ghost Stations, and we will be dipping into another Ghost Stations book. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if we had some really long stories that we didn't read. No, I think we'll go back and check. We've got a fresh book to read tonight anyway. More importantly, what are we drinking? Well, we are on another subscription beer here. This is Recita Artisanal, 38 caliber IPA. And it says craft beer brewed and canned by Barcelona Beer Company. Address 6%. Oh my goodness me. Doesn't tell us any more about that. So no, that's it. So I think that's going to be, oh, what do you know? We haven't even read the story tonight, and already we have a dead soldier. And let's just try and find the media assets and run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
And we're washing it down with the Western Gold honey from Lidl, which is absolutely lovely. I adore this. So might be getting another bottle at some stage. Right, before the hay fever kicks in, shall we carry on mit the ghost stories? And Derp is outside, by the way. He's asleep on my chair on the patio. So here we go. Let's play catch up on the ghost stories. Mrs. Joyce Schofield from Waterlooville in Hampshire had an amazing experience in 1977. I heard a knock on our Georgian door knocker, and upon opening it, I can only see a group of Royal Air Force officers fully dressed in uniform, but minus bodies. Yes, they were phantom figures you call ghosts, she said. Not everyone sees a ghost, like the case of Mrs. V. Summers from Fish Ponds near Bristol, literally just over there. In 1982, she and a friend were on holiday in Cornwall. They were touring the countryside and they stopped to look at an old churchyard. They stopped to look in an old churchyard. Her friend pointed out some airmen's graves and Mrs. Summers went over to see them. It was a very hot day without the slightest breeze, she said. Suddenly, as I bent over the RAF graves, a really terrific wind came. It's happened to me. They both looked at each other and hurried inside the church. It was such an eerie feeling, said Mrs. Summers, who later found out that there had been an airfield nearby. Mrs. Sheila Heapel from Lowestoft says, I too have experienced the eerie feeling of one such place, the Aviation Museum at Flixton, Bungay. She added, I can see and visit the presence of the young men in their bomber jackets every time I visit. I have never voiced this before because I do not want to appear odd. Wait until I voice you. Ex-warrant officer Evans, 31 years service in the Royal Air Force, had a spooky feeling while at number 202 maintenance unit in Long Parish, Hampshire. The place was a massive ammunition dump for the D-Day landings. It is near the village of Warewell, and the sergeant's mess was a collection of Nissan huts in the woods and was very remote and isolated. In the middle of the arms dump was an ancient monument about 75 feet high. It was my duty to patrol this forest, said Evans, and when near this area, a presence was felt. It was reputed to be haunted near the monument. Over the years, many people have reported eerie happenings in hotels and public houses that are frequented by wartime airmen. One such place is the Black Bull at Welton near Lincoln. It was a favourite meeting place for air crews and ground staff at nearby RAF Scampton. Ghostly footsteps have been heard many times on the stairs and on the landing, but when investigated, no one ever saw a sign of life. I think we will get to the end of this chapter, but we are going to have a quick swig of the old Calibra, artisanal. That's the word I'm looking for. Artisanal, not arts anal. In the magnificent Rush beer glass. Cheers, me beers. That's very sweet, actually. A big shout to viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States for the magnificent Rush beer glass. At Petwood Hotel in Woodhull Spa, Lincolnshire, a female security officer is convinced it is the home of the ghost of Guy Gibson and a bunch of his messmates. Only 5 days after starting work there in September 1984, it happened. At about 8 p.m, she heard a phone ring. The switchboard had been taken out and there were only 2 live phones. It was not one of them. She logged the detail. In her own words, "Suddenly it became very cold. I was in reception and put the heaters on. Then there was an almighty hammering. We had had vandals 2 nights earlier, so I called the police. There was nothing to be seen at all. Next night, I heard sounds like a party. There was laughter and I heard footsteps. The sounds came from the direction of the Squadron Bar." The officer described having heard sounds like that for a night or 2, and it was then she saw it. Nothing quite tangible, but she says, "I was really frightened." During the last war, number 617 Squadron, the famous Dam Busters, moved to Royal Air Force Woodhull Spa, and the Petwood Hotel was commandeered in the village. It was used by Wing Commander Guy Gibson, Victoria Cross, and the Special Crews. Gibson was killed in a Mosquito of number 627 Squadron in a raid against Rate, Germany on the 19th and 20th of September 1944. His aircraft, which was from Woodhull Spa, crashed in Holland. The only story which is not an RAF ghost is Sandeman's ghost, page 91. It has been included because the ghost is seen on an RAF airfield and is unusual, to say the least. Many of the stories in this book have never been published before. They have been brought to light by diligent research, and the majority are supported by eyewitness accounts. I have not set out to solve the happenings. I trust that within the following pages I can give food for thought. Sorry, folks, got the beer yawns. I trust that within the following pages I can give food for thought, that ghosts really do exist, and what you read is not figment of your imagination or self-hypnosis. I would like anyone who has experienced a ghostly happening or who knows of someone who has to please get in touch with me via the publishers. All paranormal happenings must be Royal Air Force or on airfields and will be for possible future publication. Bruce Barrymore, Halpady, Roma, Italy. Rest in peace, Bruce. These books are great. But I can't remember, did we read Wartime Memories? Well, you know what? We'll take a chance. We'll take a chance that we have read it already. Ready. But we'll read it again tonight. So what the hell? So Slange me var, everybody. Oh, lovely. Your good health. Oh, got fan mail turning up. Let's just plug the phone in. Right, more Ghost. Wartime memories. Betty Hockey has many memories from those far-off wartime days. Betty and her non-stops troop show gave over 1,000 concert shows to forces under Southern Command, and they did a marvelous job during those dark days. Betty had a daytime war job of driving a van around the area, collecting used tires for recycling. Isn't that amazing? 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, recycling. Amazing. Thereby, she was able to call into any camp or unit to ask them if they would like the show to visit them. Needless to say, they never refused. Indeed, once having been, there was always a great demand for them to return. The non-stops were very popular with all those in uniform. Look them up after the story. The 394th Bomb Group, United States Army Air Force, was stationed at Holmesley South Airfield just prior to D-Day. Basically, it was a Royal Air Force, and Betty made arrangements. Basically, it was Royal Air Force, and Betty made arrangements to give their show out there on D-Day Eve. Little did we know what was to happen that night, said Betty. All hell let loose, I guess. There was a marquee erected for the show, and they were warned that there would be much comings and goings. For this reason, they sang the national anthem and the Star-Spangled Banner before the show instead of after, as was usual. There was much tension in the air, and one sensed that something awful was about to happen, yet not knowing what, said Betty. The anthem went off uninterrupted, as usual with the British. We started the Star-Spangled Banner to sing intentionally just one verse as usual, as a gesture to the GIs. We managed to almost get through it when it was taken right out of our hands by 400 voices in unison, and they sang that as if that was to be their last. Indeed, it was for some of them. We all just stood on stage, absolutely helpless. The tears streamed down our faces, and so the tears streamed down all our faces, and so did they in the audience. Most of the boys were only kids. I'm afraid I just cannot go out on that airfield now without hearing that singing ringing in my ears. It's eerie. Betty Hockey was taken out there just prior to the D-Day anniversary in 1984 to do a film for both BBC and also the American NBC. Each time I hear those voices and the roar of the planes as they took off, said Betty. Each time I could hear, goodness me, it's been a long day, folks. Each time I could hear those voices and the roar of the planes as they took off, said Betty. That airfield is now in disuse, and hardly anything of those years is visible. Yet those two visits brought it all flooding back. I often wonder just how many of those boys came back. If they didn't, did they go out with some of the songs of our show on their lips? I would like to think so. I would like to think that we played a very, very tiny part in raising their morale before they left. Was this the ghostly music heard by Helen Bevan and Valerie Sager, page 32? Or was it the Missouri Waltz heard by Derek Harrison, page 34? Or was it the Americans singing that Miss Christine Chappell heard, the Phantom Party at Odstock Maternity Hospital, page 36? All camps were sealed just prior to D-Day, so instead of the usual travelling to the camp and going in being expected, Betty Hockey and the non-stops were told that they had to rendezvous with a motorcycle escort. They were not supposed to know where they were going. which was a farce as Betty had previously visited said camp to book the show. However, it was no hardship to meet at the local pub, the very old Cat and Fiddle, said Betty. From there, well oiled, we were escorted into the camp, but laugh upon laugh when the motorcycle escort and me driving our lead car of four. Yeah. But laugh upon laugh with the motorcycle escort and me driving our leading car of four, we promptly turned off into a side road, remembering that the rest of our cars being dotted in and out of the army convoy. That doesn't make sense. Let me read that again. But laugh upon laugh with the motorcycle escort and me driving our leading car of four, we promptly turned off into a side road, remembering that the rest of our cars behind were dotted in and out of the army convoy which we had encountered on the road. You can well imagine the utter confusion which evolved when this convoy, together with the rest of our cars, got stuck in this very narrow lane. So did we. There was utter chaos as each army vehicle, including tanks, there was utter chaos as each army vehicle, including tanks, had slowly and surely to back onto the main road again. You see, it was dark, very dark, and they had followed my car, which was an old Canadian Army staff car, a big Ford V8 painted in its khaki colour. However, we made it and the show went on. The show must go on, which I believe is a Queen song from Check's Notes 36 years ago. 36 years. Strange. Oh, you're good help. Another base visited by Betty Hockey and her non-stops was at Ringstead Bay in Dorset. It was the living quarters area of the Royal Air Force camp and airfield that was at nearby Warmwell. They had been there many times. Then suddenly, without warning to Betty, it was turned into an American All Blacks camp. I must admit that they were a very good audience and gave us a wonderful welcome, said Betty. But one could not help noticing that the treatment and respect of them was not good by the white Americans. However, that situation has improved enormously now. Has it, Betty? Then, the next time they went to Ringstead, they noted barbed wire all around. Nothing daunted, in they went, but that doesn't make sense. Nothing daunted, in they went, as by this time they had learned not to be surprised by anything. The commanding officer let them unload all their scenery and props. Then he told them that it was now a German prisoner of war camp. Right, everything back on the trailer, said Betty. Were they not our enemy? But the commanding officer asked as a special favour to him that they give the show. He told them that they were a grand bunch of fellows, as indeed He told them they were a grand bunch of fellows. As indeed we found out, said Betty, but it did so against the grain. They were given an interpreter and the show went well with much appreciation from the Germans. Needless to say, Betty and her troop kept all that very quiet and never let on to a soul until around 3 years ago. The commanding officer also asked for a further special favour that of leaving their props and scenery. The commanding officer also asked for a further special favour, that of leaving their props and scenery behind so that the prisoners of war may have an outing the next day, by bringing it all back on a huge truck. They were under guard, so all went well. I still have photos of those men unloading, and now, of course, we would dearly like to put names to those faces. Those faces, recalls Betty. Because of this episode, I was invited by the Deputy Chief of German Army Staff to visit a German regiment in 1983 and spent 2 whole days with them in barracks, staying with the commandant and his wife. They were 2 charming people, and my life is richer for having met them all. Indeed, Betty. Beaulieu Airfield in Hampshire was another place they visited, and believe it or not, it was the only place where they could win some petrol with which to keep their cars on the road to do the shows. Betty had no difficulty in booking the concert party up, especially for the small camps or units which were under canvas and never saw any sort of entertainment. So each time she was around Beaulieu, she carried a large empty carboy, which normally contained distilled water. Then it was arranged that the carboy would quickly be filled with petrol. No doubt aviation fuel, as it stank to high heaven, said Betty. I well remember pulling out onto the road in front of a police car. Phew, I had a few moments of panic. The fuel absolutely reeked, so naturally I had the windows open. I quickly shut them and nearly gassed myself, but I was certain that they must have got scent of me. However, they quickly pulled into a farm which I knew, and knowing the farmer would quickly try again. They followed on for about 10 or so miles. It's been a long day, folks. The fuel absolutely reeked, so naturally I had the windows open. I quickly shut them, nearly gassed myself, but I was certain that they must have got scent of me. However, they followed on for about 10 or so miles when I suddenly had an idea and quickly pulled into a farm which I knew. And knowing the farmer would cooperate, he very swiftly yanked out the carboy and closed the doors. Gosh, a hairy moment. I need not have worried. The police car just merely went on its way. Stony Cross Airfield in Hampshire was a joy to visit, and an American base where food was plentiful. At that airfield, the men would patrol around Bournemouth in jeeps, just literally waiting to kidnap girls right off the street. And this they did very efficiently. The girls would soon find themselves at the dance hall on the station, and they sure gave them a good evening. When the non-stops had finished their shows, they were always entertained in the officers' mess. Hijinks too, and at that particular base it was. Hijinks too, and at that particular base it was an every time occurrence to pile onto the. It was an every long day, folks. Hijinks too, and at that particular base, it was an every time occurrence to pile onto jeeps and to try and chase the taking off planes on a race to the end of the airfield, recalls Betty. Crazy days, but happy ones. Guess only the Yanks were capable of such antics. Another of the many airfields visited by Betty and her troop was Netheravon in Wiltshire. This was an old airfield dating back to before the First World War. When Betty's petrol supply ran out, or maybe tyres, let's read that again. When Betty's petrol supply ran out, or maybe tyres too bad to travel, they always had the option of asking the camp to send out a 10-ton truck, or Betty could always hire a coach and Southern Command would pay the bill. In one case, they asked for a 10-ton truck, which was duly sent with a black American driver. Goodness, was that guy crazy, said Betty. He drove like a maniac, mounting curbs, etc., and generally enjoying himself. But the considerate entertainment officer had put in 16 NAFI-type chairs, which sadly to say were on casters. We spent the whole journey like being on a roller coaster, and no way could we attract the driver's attention in the cab. Needless to say, we refused to be transported home that way, as we were literally black and blue. They sent us home in a series of staff cars. Betty added, I have often wondered just how many of those wonderful boys that we played to returned. Did they go out of this world humming one of the tunes they last heard at our concert party? I would like to think so. I cannot now ever go out onto an airfield without tears in my eyes and without that crescendo of voices haunting in my ears. It seems just as if it were yesterday. That's the end of that one. No, we read that one before, so we're going to jump onto another book. So let's do the sting. Nope, that's it. That's it for ghost stories. What are we up to? 28 minutes, almost at half time. Almost at half time. So slange me far. Oh, lovely. Oh, cheers. Oh. Ba-ba-ba-bum-ba-bum. Bear with, folks. Just messaging friends here. What are we up to? 29 minutes. Yeah, we'll do oops, we'll do from Ghost Stories 5. Then we'll do half time. So let's find a nice short one. Right. Spinster's Luck. In all of my Ghost Station books, I have included a poem or two, and quite naturally, they all have a haunting theme, in keeping with Ghost Stations and the old wartime airfields. But for Ghost Stations 5, I thought to change the theme and sprinkle a little humour, and include a poem written by Ralph Gilbert, a former mid-upper gunner in Handley Page Halifax Bombers of number 158 Squadron, based at Lisset in Yorkshire. To help pass away the hours as he scanned the hostile night sky, Ralph would make up poems. Readers of my Ghost Stations may well recall that in Ghost Stations Book 1, the story about the Reaper's bomber, page 159, that included... Yeah, again. Come on, Bruce. Readers of my Ghost Stations may well recall that in Ghost Stations Book 1, the story about the Reaper's bomber, page 159, that haunted Royal Air Force Lisset. The moon was already well up when Halifax X-ray took off from RAF Lisset at 22:30 hours on Friday, the 2nd of June, 1944. But it was destined not to return. The Reaper's bomber had been seen over the airfield. Their target was the marshalling yards at Trappes near Paris, and the raid was to commence at 00:50 hours on the Saturday morning. Number 158 Squadron supplied 23 bombers for the raid. The total force attacking was 124 bombers, and 16 failed to return, 5 being from number 158 Squadron, one of which was X for X-ray. Of the 7 crew, 1 was killed, 2 taken prisoner of war, 4 evaded capture, one of those being Sergeant Ralph Gilbert, who continued with his poems. The following is one of them. I trust you enjoy it. Spinster's Luck. Mrs. Bloggs was a spinster who lived all alone in a very large semi-detached. She had a small cottage near Bournemouth as well, but this wasn't tiled. It was thatched. She never had savoured the thrills and delights of hopelessly falling in love. But at 50, she still hadn't given up hope, and she prayed to the Lord above. Please send me a lover, a great hulking male. All my treasures I'd trade for a man. I don't care what shape or what colour he is, but make it as quick as you can. That night in her bedroom, she prayed once again and slowly prepared to retire. To warm up her ardour, she had to resort to her glowing wall-mounted gas fire. She put in her false teeth and her glossy glass eye. She put her false teeth and her glossy glass eye in a jug at the side of the bed, then combed the long tresses that hung down her back and removed the false wig from her head. As her eyelashes next she unstuck with some care, she began to resemble a croc. With a flick of the wrist, she unscrewed her left leg and hung it under the clock. As soon as she was dreaming of Omar Sharif, Bob Mitchum, Cary Grant, and John Wayne, and soon she was dreaming of Omar Sharif, Bob Mitchum, Cary Grant, and John Wayne. And when she had finished, she sighed a big sigh and started all over again. And so she slumbered with mouth wide open, emitting a musical snore. A frightening shadow moved into the room as someone sneaked in through the door. The silent intruder caught sight of Miss Bloggs and was almost about to depart, when he let out a yell as he stubbed his big toe, and the spinster awoke with a start. As she transfixed the robber with one bloodshot eye, she quickly reached under the bolster. With a dexterous twist and a flick of the wrist, she slid the gun out of its holster. She looked ugly as sin, and she gave a wry grin as the poor fellow stood there and cussed. He was trembling with fear as she whispered, "Come here," in a voice that was husky with lust. "Oh, please let me go. I won't do it again," said the burglar, whose first name was Greg. But levelling the pistol, she jumped out of bed and stood standing there on one leg. "I'm sure you must know that I can't let you go," she remarked in a tremulous voice. "I've been waiting for you for a decade or two. I'll be fair, though. I'll give you a chance. If you marry me, then I'll let you go free. Otherwise, mate, you are going to get this." As he viewed her bald head, the last words he said were, take aim, and make sure you don't miss." I'll read that last line again. "If you marry me, then I'll let you go free. Otherwise, mate, you are going to get this." He viewed her bald head. The last words he said were, take aim and make sure you don't miss. Definitely a thunderclap. Marvellous. Oops. Cheers, Bruce. That was the end of the 38 caliber, which was very nice. Not bad. Slash. Oh my goodness me, folks. I am melting here tonight. I don't like the hot weather. I mean, I shouldn't like the cold weather because when it's the cold weather, I can literally see pound notes flying out of my radiator. But it's easier to get warm than it is to try and get cool. So, right, oops, glasses are coming off here. Time for some chili rice snacks from Lidl. God bless you, Lidl. Half time. Sorry, dropping things all over the place there. Right. Half time today. And it was a 2 reg walk day. Now, the plan was we were going to do the West Somerset Railway today because we haven't done it for a week or two. But the problem there was because of the fire risk, the West Somerset Railway has had to temporarily close. So no 2 reg walk on the West Somerset Railway. So Reg came up with a brilliant alternate plan B, which was to do Ty's trail walk near the fishing lakes, just around the corner from us. So that's what we did. So without further ado, let's share screen. So here we are, starting the walk on the Ty Sculpture Trail. And there's Reg, there's Reg leaving his house, leaving his flat rather. It's honestly, the discussions we have about, oh, you can't fly the flag in this country. Yes, you can fly the flag, Reg. You just can't hang it on any piece of public property you feel fit to do so. You can fly it from an official flagpole. You can hang it in your own property. But what you can't do is go out in the dead of night and start hanging it from lampposts and street lights and you name it. So anyway, there we go. There's Reg being very patriotic. God bless him. And there's Reg traversing one of the very steep steps on this walk that we did today. And there we are walking through the dappled light of the woodland. Honestly, it was so hot today that this was a perfect walk. I mean, I would have loved to have done the West Somerset Railway, but we would have been right out in the bright sunshine. And tomorrow is going to be even hotter. Goodness me. Anyway, there we go. And this was the great thing, the Ty Sculpture Trail. So we had the leaflet telling us what to look out for. So we managed that one, which I think is a crow or a raven. Then there's that one, which is the footsteps or the paw prints. Then there's that one, which is the green man. Genius. Love that one. This was nothing to do with the Sculpture Trail. This was just an aside, but Woodland Trust, who managed the site, brilliant stuff by them. While parking your rear, pause to reflect on the memory of Sir Rock Lobster. Colin Devereux, 1972 to 2012. Colin, unique, naughty, and tremendous. 1972 to 2012. So that's 72, 82, 92, 02, 20, only 40. Goodness me. That's tragic. And there we go. Woodland Trust walking in Tower House Wood, which is brilliant. I will do another walk there so I can do the rest of the sculpture trails. Talking of which, that's the robin. And then we managed the fox. No, that's the deer, rather. That's the deer. That's the badger. You can see that's a badger. That's the fox. Hard to see, but yeah, that's definitely the fox. And then there was that one for the polo oak. And more paw prints as well. Another one on the Ty Sculpture Trail. That was one of the lovely ponds that were there on the walk. Absolutely brilliant. And that, oh goodness me, I'll tell you what that is. That was when we're having a cup of tea at the fishing lake. And OBS identify. Because Reg was saying he got it wrong what it was. I can tell you what that is. It is a helmeted guinea fowl. Of course it is. That's what Reg said. He went, oh yeah, of course. It's like, yeah, as if. Yeah, helmeted guinea fowl. But there we go. That was today's walk, just over 2 miles. So not massive by our own standards. Only 7,700 steps, hour and a half. But oh my goodness me, it was punishingly hot. Oh, we were melting. And the one thing I did do before we left today was overnight, I bought some bottles of water from Lidl and popped them into the freezer. So they froze solid overnight, and took them out just before we were leaving, took them out, and we both had them. And within about kind of half an hour of walking, they were liquid, but they were nice and cold. So absolutely brilliant. Top dollar stuff. So let's have some more Thai chili snacks. And we are now on to the Love Lane Blackbird Extra Stout. Sorry, shouldn't talk with my mouth full of food. This stuff is incroyable. Get this from Home Bargains. Blackbird Extra Stout, brewed under the watchful eyes of the liver birds. Roasted barley, flaked oats, and a selection of dark malts are combined to create a robust dark stout with notes of coffee, rich toffee, and chocolate, finished with a lingering tannic bitterness. A special release from Love Lane. And it says malts, golden promise, crystal, oats, wheat, chocolate, black, hops, admiral, notes, chocolate, rich toffee, palate, creamy coffee sweetness, finish, tannic bitter. Units 2.9, IBU 50, but 6.7%. Oh my goodness me, we had a beer. We've had this beer tonight is 6%. This one, 6%. We got this one here is 6.7. I'm going to sleep well tonight, I can tell you, folks. Do you know what? Despite the fact that it was incredibly hot last night, I actually had a pretty decent night's sleep. So anyway, shall we continue to part 2 of tonight's ghost stories? The Phantom Bed Checker of RAF Hereford. Each month, on average, I receive about 100 letters, many with interesting stories, and one such letter was from Jan Thorpe, who encountered some ghostly experiences after she joined the Women's Royal Air Force, the RAF for short. It all started after she arrived at RAF Hereford for her basic training at the RAF School of Recruit Training. Better still, I will let Jan tell you in her own words about the Phantom Bed Checker of RAF Hereford. As I think what voice I'm going to do for this one. After having first read 2 of your Ghost Stations books, 2 and 4, I was compelled to write and tell you of my ghostly experiences in the Royal Air Force. I joined the RAF in January 1979 and went to Royal Air Force Hereford for my basic recruit training and was billeted in Leroyd Block. Early evening, we were bed checked at midnight. Early evening, we were bed checked at midnight, I think it was. This meant that we all had to be in bed with lights out at this time, and we were checked by the duty NCO, who would walk down the full length of the room, making sure we were all in. The room was occupied by either 12 or 14 girls, so it was quite long. This one particular night, the duty NCO was a few minutes early, but as we were all in bed in the dark, we thought no more about it until, that is, we were bed checked again at midnight. And as room leader, I asked the NCO why we were being bed checked again. Was something wrong? She said that this was the first time she had been in, and what was I talking about? There was no way that our phantom bed checker was one of the girls playing tricks, as it as it definitely had metal legs in sorry, as it definitely had metal segs in the shoes, and we weren't allowed them until we were due to pass out. Everyone in the room heard it. If recruit Jan Thorpe had read Ghost Stations, the first volume, and the story about the jilted ghost, she might have had cause to be frightened by the presence of the phantom bed checker. But now that is gone. For in September 1982, the RAF School of Recruit Training, all the beer burps at 48 minutes. There we go. 48 minutes and 0 seconds. But now that is gone. For in September 1982, the RAF School of Recruit Training was transferred from Royal Air Force Hereford to form a joint school of recruit training at Royal Air Force Swinderby in Lincolnshire. And there they have their own ghosts. I think we definitely deserve a thunderclap for that. Or that'll be a copyright strike from Facebook, but I don't care. Oh, we've got a like. Who's liking us? It's viewer Damien. Hello, viewer Damien. God bless you. So this is the Love Lane special release. Cheers, me beers. Oh, lovely. And in the magnificent United Federation of Planet Shot Glass, again from viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States, this is the Western Gold Honey, which I will get another bottle of. Very nice stuff. So, slange me bar, everybody. Oh, I think we'll have another wasabi snack. Do apologise, folks. I'm just trying to get rid of those wasabi snacks. A glimpse into the past. In September 1983, SACW Jan Thorpe was posted to number 840 Signals Unit near to Royal Air Force Lindholm in Yorkshire. SACW Thorpe's role was telecommunications officer, and her unit was housed in what used to be the Northern Radar buildings. She remained with number 840 signal units until June 1986. In the 1950s, we had the top secret ROTA program that involved the restoration of 28 wartime above ground chain home stations, plus 38 radar stations, 25 in vulnerable areas being underground, and the other 13 being semi-underground, all linked by 1,000 miles of new duct line, 3,000 miles of cable, and 750 teleprinters. This was the start of the clandestine Gladio operation. Now, the old Northern Radar buildings gave way to new technology, and SACW Jan Thorpe takes up the story. I was one of the first to be posted in when it became operational, but a lot of the lads have been there quite a few months doing lots of renovations and installing equipment. Naturally, there were lots of ghost stories and queer goings-on stories going around. I must admit that whenever I went upstairs from the traffic hall to the restroom, day or night, I always felt as though someone was watching me as I went up them. I think she means the stairs, not the person. At least I hope so. The only encounter I had with time zones, as you described them in your Ghost Stations 2, was whilst I was at 840 SU. I went over to a filing cabinet in the traffic hall, which was near to the doors, which led out to the rest of the building: stairs, offices, police posts, and entrance and exit turnstile. To go through these doors to the rest of the building, you had to go down 2 steps, and the filing cabinet I was standing next to was about 6 feet away from those steps. The doors had windows in, and you had to look down through the windows to see what was going on in the main corridor, though vision was obstructed somewhat by the fact that you were looking down. Anyway, this particular day, I was by the filing cabinet and looked through the windows in the door and caught what I've always described as a glimpse into the past, as I saw, as plain as day, people walking around wearing old Royal Air Force uniforms, what nowadays are known as Hairy Marys. There was a man walking in front of what should have been the turnstile from right to left as I looked, carrying sheets of paper. Everyone looked very busy. The whole thing lasted about 20 seconds, the time it took me to get something out of the filing cabinet. It wasn't until I walked away and thought about what I had seen that I realized it wasn't quite right. I went back to where I had been standing and looked through the doors. I went back to where I was standing and looked through the windows and the doors, and by the sheer fact that I had to look down to look through the windows, and that the turnstile area was about 48 feet from where I was standing, I couldn't see the turnstile area at all. So I am therefore convinced that I saw a glimpse of the past. Also, at all hours of the day or night, we could often smell bacon cooking, even though the kitchen was on the opposite side of the building, and even though we knew no one had been cooking. A smell from the past, perhaps? When I asked Jan Thorpe what sort of feeling she had, she replied, I do remember that I felt compelled to look towards the window, almost drawn toward it, if you like, and that I was aware of no one else or any other sound around me. It was as if everyone and everything else had disappeared, leaving me alone, gazing into the past. And she added, there is no doubt in my mind that I had a privileged glimpse into the past. I know what I saw. Shades of Genesis there. I know what I like, and I like what I know. The traffic hall was always very cold, and staff were told that this was due to the air conditioning. But was there other reasons? I'm sure it should be, but were there other reasons? Had the supernatural the answer for it being always very cold? It was certainly more than just the air conditioning, SACW Jan Thorpe. It was certainly more than just the air conditioning, full stop. SACW Jan Thorpe said, I always felt as though someone was watching me whenever I went up the stairs to the rest room. Read it again. SACW Jan Thorpe said, I always felt as though someone was watching me whenever I went up the stairs to the rest room. I think that definitely deserves a thunderclap. We are coming up towards the hour mark, so oh, goodness me, folks. Flange. I woke up at about 6 o'clock this morning. No, it was literally about 5 minutes to 5. I was listening to a podcast. Derpy came into the bedroom, started yowling. So I went downstairs and fed him, then snuck back into bed, listened to another podcast, then fell asleep and woke up at about 6-ish, 6:30. Then I was downstairs into the office, fired up the iMac, started doing some artwork, and then went outside. Once I'd had a cup of tea in the studio, he said grandly, and then with my cup and saucer, because I'm girt posh, I then went out onto the patio and had a cup of tea outside because Derp had vacated the chair. That's where he is. In fact, I'm just going to see if I can find a picture of him sat in the chair. Bear with. I did get a photograph of him this morning as I went outside. Yeah, there we go. There he is, sat on the chair. Honestly, that's my chair. But last night he didn't come in at all. In fact, I purposefully left the back door open so that he could come and go as he wished. But for the most part, he was asleep out on the patio. Right, we're going to have some mega mix here, sweet chili and lime, rich in protein apparently. So that's a bit hot for me. Fine. The Ghost Squadrons at Royal Air Force Scampton. As I write, RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire is still an operational airfield, but there are many strong rumours that this once busy wartime airfield twice there, Bruce, will close. And that is more than likely, seeing that pen pushers and accountants now rule the forces. So it is not security, but money that rules. And sadly, the future for Royal Air Force Scampton looks very bleak. When did he write this? I'm guessing 1993, so the Tories were in charge. So does that explain why the ghost squadrons now take to the skies to haunt the government's double dealings for shamefully losing faith with those who gave their all? With RAF Scampton still an operational airfield, many who have heard and in some cases seen the ghost squadrons have been too afraid to speak for fear of damaging their RAF careers. And all such cases reported have been covered up. But one not afraid to speak out is Mrs. Jan Thorpe. In June 1990, my husband was posted to Royal Air Force Scampton. I was no longer in the RAF. We'd heard all the stories of people seeing Rachel Slur, the dog, and that on certain nights you could hear Lancasters flying. This one particular night in October, my husband and I were in bed. I was reading, and he was fast asleep, when in the distance I heard like a humming, droning noise that got louder and louder. I was paralyzed, not in fear, but in wonder. The noise eventually got overhead, and I woke my husband up. As it went directly over our house, he jumped out of bed to look out of the window, and there was nothing there at all, just a noise, and then it faded away into the distance. Bruce, that should be, but there was nothing there at all, just a noise, and then it faded away to the distance. It was definitely not an aircraft of today, and certainly not one that is at Scampton these days. It wasn't until the next day that we both came to the same conclusion, that it may have been the Lancasters going off on a mission somewhere. Many people at Royal Air Force Scampton have reported hearing phantom Lancaster bombers during the month of October, and this could be the ghost squadrons taking off and returning from Operation Robinson. This was a dusk raid on the Schneider Works at Le Creusot in France, and the two Scampton-based squadrons, number 49 and 57, took part. Both squadrons were equipped with the mighty four-engined Avro Lancaster bomber. Operation Robinson was carried out on the 17th of October 1942. Did Mrs. Jan Thorpe and her husband hear the phantom bombers returning? That definitely deserves a sting. Oh, slice. Oh my goodness me, we've got more about Guy Gibson's unfortunate racially slurred dog coming up, but I think this might be the last one for tonight. What are we up to? Hour and 3 minutes. Yeah, quite possibly. The Friendly Phantom in Room 15. In March 1991, Brian Stevenson decided to spend a few days in Lincolnshire looking over the old wartime airfields. And as a flying officer in the Volunteer Reserve, he can enjoy the facilities of all service messes. He therefore decided to stay at RAF Scampton and was accommodated in Room 15 on the ground floor of the west wing of the officers' mess. I gotta say, Bruce, I'm trying to read your ghost stories here, but your layout and line spacing and just general typography, yeah, could do with improvement, mate. Flying officer Brian Stevenson arrived at Royal Air Force Scampton on Monday, the 18th of March, 1991, and, comma, he quickly settled in. Shouldn't be a comma there. He was commissioned in September 1987. He was commissioned in September 1987 and takes great interest in the Royal Air Force, past and present. He was looking forward to the next few days and had come well prepared for all events, all except a visit by a friendly phantom, as he now explains. It was quite a large room which probably would have housed two people, or at least contained quite a bit of furniture. My one small bed, desk and chest of drawers seemed lost in its spaciousness, which seemed to amplify the presence of a very large built-in wardrobe next to the wash basin. It could have been built into a one-time chimney breast, judging by the shape of the wall in which it was situated. The wardrobe was not a particularly recent addition, judging by its style and dark wood exterior, the exterior being white painted. On the second evening, I opted for a bath before dinner, and I duly collected my things and walked a short distance along the corridor to the nearest bathroom. My thoughts were only of my plans for the following morning as I took my bath, in which I lingered longer than I intended, and I hurried back to my room to dress, not wanting to miss dinner, as I was now quite hungry following my day's wanderings. My hand was almost on the door handle when I stopped abruptly. I had the strangest but certain feeling that there was someone in my room. Believing that I was about to disturb an intruder, I entered the room braced for what I might encounter, but it was quite empty, and just as I had left it. I checked around and found nothing out of place, but I still felt as though I had been right about feeling a presence. After dinner and a couple of beers, I swear it was no more than 2, I returned to my room to read for a little while before turning in. No strange feeling this time. I knew my room was all right. I put my trousers and blazer away in the wardrobe and firmly closed the doors, which fitted very well. And after reading for an hour, I turned off my bedside light and fell asleep. Something awoke me from a deep sleep. My luminous watch read 3:10 a.m. The wardrobe doors where my gaze fell as I awoke were wide open. I thought to myself, half out loud, somebody has left those bloody doors open again, and I'm not getting up to close them. I knew I did wake. I remember clearly checking my watch. I cannot explain my half-spoken exclamation or my annoyance as I rolled over and went back to sleep. I again woke, this time with a start, and the presence in my room was undeniable. Not unfriendly at all or unsettling in any way. It was almost as though someone's departure from the room had awoken me this time. The wardrobe doors were still open. I checked my room door. It was locked, just as I had left it. I think we'll have another beer. Oh, cracking stuff. Slange. It was still too early to get up, and I dozed for perhaps another hour and a half before my radio alarm woke me at 7. Bruce, I swear this is true. The wardrobe doors were now closed quite firmly too, as I had to really tug to open them. I stayed another 2 nights, and I really expected an escalation of events, but nothing untoward occurred. I felt an unaccountable sadness as I packed my things on the morning of my departure. I felt that I was taking my leave of somewhere that I had known for some time. I spoke a quiet goodbye to the room as I made for the door, or at least that was my belief at the time. But by the time I closed the door seconds later, I could not deny that I addressed the presence that I had felt there, and I somehow understood the sadness I had experienced a little earlier, the kind of sadness known by someone who seems to be destined to be alone. It took some time for me to sift through my thoughts and come to terms with my feeling. After all, I had come to Lincolnshire in search of the past. I had walked on what remains of Royal Air Force Metheringham. I had been to Wellingborough and to Colby Grange. I had found myself in Scopwick Churchyard, almost by accident, spotting Royal Air Force and Luftwaffe graves. Yet I had felt absolutely nothing at all when I had been looking for it. Incidentally, I discovered your book in Lincoln. After my experience at Scampton. And that's where we're gonna end it tonight, folks. Let's have a thunderclap. All that'll be a punishment from Facebook. But anyway, end of the love lane. Cheers, me beers. Delicious. And we've still got some of the Western Gold honey. Slange. Deliciouser. Right. That's it for tonight. We're going to go downstairs and watch some World Cup football and have some supper. Fingers crossed, we'll be back for, brace yourselves, Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Friday. So until then, as always, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.